I'm gonna attempt to do a random rant on this Fantastic Four movie. My heart's not really in it. My heart's not in these movies anymore. They're not really that good, that exciting. They're not faithful to the source material and stuff. So, I don't really care to see them. And for this movie in particular, this movie wasn't a horrible movie. So it's not even fun for me to really poke at it. But I'm going to try anyway. So, this time I'm actually going to talk about the negative stuff first because it's not less negative stuff. The reason it's not as much is I'm not a big Fantastic Four fan. Most of my random rants where I'm passionate, it's about stuff that I'm passionate about. I've never really cared about the Fantastic Four and never, kind of dumb characters. And it's not characters I ever read. I don't even know that much about them. So they made a lot of changes, and the changes I knew about, but it didn't bother me. It bothered me, but it didn't really bother me to the point where I'm angry because it's a Fantastic Four. Who cares?
Famous around the world, please welcome the Fantastic Four.
So, to start off, Ben Grimm. I liked Ben Grimm. I liked Johnny Storm. I liked their dynamic. Pedro Pascal. I hated the casting of Pedro Pascal, but he did a fine job. Yeah, he didn't do a horrible job. He played a proper Mr. Fantastic, I guess. Again, I'm not a big fan of these characters, so I don't know if he did or not, but it seemed like he did fine. Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards is just, is the most intelligent man in the universe, in that universe or whatever, or on that planet. And he stretches, and that's pretty much, that's pretty much what he is. The Fantastic Four is one of the first comic book characters made. But I think they were Marvel's first, or maybe it was maybe Submariner was the first. Whatever, they were at least one of the first. So they didn't, in the very beginning when comics were made, they didn't really have to work on giving these characters real substance as far as their personalities go, because they were, really just hokey stories for kids. It kind of evolved later on, and then you had more complex characters with, characters who were prostitutes and drug addicts and all kinds of stuff. But Reed Richards, he was always just a character. He's not. So when I'm watching it, I'm like, well, what do I really expect them to do? So it was fine what they did with Reed Richards. It wasn't horrible. It was fine. I still didn't like the look of Pedro Pascal, and certain little things that is because we've seen Pedro Pascal so much now. It felt like you were watching Pedro Pascal play a character instead of watching a version of Reed Richards. So I wouldn't cast him, but I wasn't like disgusted or pissed off while watching it. I was like, it's fine, whatever. Sue, I didn't like Sue Storm. She was, and I know people are, whenever a man says something like this, people get upset. But Sue Storm is not that strong of a woman. The way she was portrayed, this character was more like a Selena Kyle. I don't mean that she should have been like a weak loser, because Sue Storm's not a weak loser, but she's not, she's a product of that time when she was created. She's not that, the way this lady portrayed her, it was just different from the character. And how I'm going to try to explain this in a certain way. So, for example, you don't want to make women appear weak and pathetic. I agree with that. But certain characters are certain characters. So let's take the Flintstones, for example. You have Wilma and Betty. Wilma is more of a strong-willed character. Betty, Barney's wife, she's not. She's more demure. She's more passive. That's just who that character is. So while you don't want to make a habit of portraying women as weak, because when they're not, you're making a story about a specific character, and this is who they are, and this is their personality. And you're not going to just make Betty from the Flintstones into a Red Sonja or something like that, where she's this big power, because that's not who she is. And it wasn't like an extreme change here, but it was enough of a change to be noticeable. And they did it only because, they want the strong, powerful woman character. You don't have to do that. You don't have to keep changing the characters. We've had enough of those now. You you just stick to the type of character that it is. So I didn't like Sue Storm. I didn't even like the look of her. I didn't like the way the woman looked. Again, it wasn't horrible. She didn't do a horrible job. And also, again, I'm not a big fan of these characters. So maybe Sue Storm has had some growth in the comics that I don't know about, and whatever. So maybe this does fit. I don't know. But it didn't feel like Sue Storm. Johnny, I like Johnny's character. I like the way he was portrayed. And again, there's 2 points. I don't know much about the character, so maybe Johnny is, but I never knew that he was like, a scientist. So I never understood why they took him on the trip with them, but in space. But I don't remember him being a scientist. And in this, I think all 4 of them were some form of scientist, or at least some form. He was acting like the side. I don't know, but that didn't fit. And again, maybe he is, and I don't know. So I'm not going to say that was a problem. Also, this movie, these were characters from another world or another universe. This wasn't the regular characters. So I guess maybe he could have been different. I don't know. And even if that is the case, that was stupid. I don't know why they keep doing this. Alternate universe characters. You want to see a movie about characters you love? Well, we're going to make an alternate version of them. Well, I didn't ask for a fucking alternate version. I just want to see the regular fucking characters. So I didn't dislike Johnny. I liked him enough. I liked his dynamic. Certain things that I couldn't explain. Why was he able to flame on and his clothes not burn? Sue, why was she able to bend light even around her clothes? That, certain, it just didn't make sense. And again, I'm not a big fan. I have to keep saying that because maybe these things have been explained in the comics, and I just don't know. But from what I remember from the few stories that I did read and pay attention to, they had to wear certain like special suits in order to deal with their powers, because you flame on, your clothes burn. And when she bends light, she can't bend light around her clothes. She bends light, her on herself or something like that, whatever. So that wasn't a big deal, but it was something that stood out. Like, this is not making too much sense. I think at one point, Reed Richards, did he stretch in his clothes and the clothes stretched with him? I don't know. I didn't like the sets. Again, the same thing from the Deadpool Wolverine movie. These are like supposed to be epic films. And the production teams are getting lazier and lazier and cheaper. And it's affecting the movies, because this felt like a television show because they were filming on a set, and the set looked exactly the same as the set in Deadpool Wolverine. And the set I'm talking about is the city where they're walking around the little neighborhood area. Ben went somewhere to get some cookies, and he saw that girl from American Pie. That area looked like a set, and you feel like it's a set. So now it feels like a television show. It doesn't feel as epic as it should be, and maybe that's not a big deal to the newer generation, but to the older generation, we're used to movies being grand and being this big deal. It's not a TV show; it's a fucking movie. So you're expecting, this grandeur, but when it's just like a set that's noticeably a set, and they can't go to locations anymore because, it's easier for them. And I understand it's easier for you guys and it's cheaper for production to do that. But that's only passable if you're making the story you're making has to be phenomenal. And then we can excuse that stuff. Look, they gave us a great, memorable story with great, memorable characters that's going to stick with me for years, if not decades, if not the rest of my life. So who cares if they want a set? Who the fuck cares? But these stories aren't great. They're just average stories at best, if that. So when they're on sets, on top of that, you're watching either an average story or a bad story, and then they don't even look good to watch. And it's kind of like, what the fuck? Silver Surfer. Apart from the obvious, why the fuck is Norrin Rad a woman? But the name of the surfer wasn't Norrin Rad, so it wasn't Norrin Rad. It's not like they turned Norrin Rad into a woman, I guess. This is another version, some obscure shit that nobody knows about. Whatever. I didn't like that, but I already knew it going into it, so I didn't care. I was expecting garbage anyway.
I herald his beginning. I herald your end. I herald Galactus.
But the point about Silver Surfer is, why did the Silver Surfer look that way? The Silver Surfer in the fucking movie with Jessica Alba looked better than this.
Can we talk? Okay. You win.
Dude, what's going on? These people just... It's like they can't... It's like they're not even trying no more. I was like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with her face? This shit clearly looks so bad. Again, it's the fucking movie. I'm used to, like, you go to the movies and you're used to seeing, wow, this is the best of the best. Maybe not even in story, but at least in the look. Like, all right, they put money into this. And no, it's kind of like they're like, look, it just looked bad. Other things I didn't like, they went to, this Galactus thing. They find out about this Galactus thing, and they encounter Silver Surfer, and I should have recorded this right after. I think I'm forgetting, but I think they had some kind of encounter with Silver Surfer before they found out about Galactus, right? Yes, because Johnny Storm chased the woman into space and survived somehow. So they encountered Silver Surfer. Silver Surfer would have been the most powerful thing they've ever fought, because they show a little montage of them, and they fought like, Mole Man. They fought some guy with monkeys, and they fought regular Final Fantasy, Fantastic Four villains. So this is like another level threat. They have to travel through a wormhole to get to this guy, and the guy eats worlds, right? And they have an idea of how dangerous this shit is. You gonna bring your fucking pregnant wife on you on a trip like this? I know. I kind of know why they made her pregnant in the story. Why they put Franklin in the story, I kind of understand, but at the same time, it still felt lazy, because it didn't make sense why. It was like, why? It's like they did it only because they had no other way to make the story decent. And so that's why they kind of shoehorned this pregnancy thing in. And so now that they shoehorned it in, now they have to do things that are stupid. Why would they bring her along on a mission like that? And then these guys are going, again, I've said this in other movies, this movie didn't have the problem that some of the other movies had with the fucking comedy. But still, there's still people making jokes at inappropriate times. At inappropriate times. They're going to fight this like really unknown, like next level threat, and they're like in the ship. I mean, they're flying through a fucking wormhole, going to almost to maybe their death, and they're making like jokes like, Johnny, stop talking about the lady. Hey, stop! It's not fitting. It's like they don't even know how they're not even like, setting the mood for the scenes properly. It's just not good at any of this stuff. So they go out to Galactus and then making jokes, and then they survive Galactus in his home or on his ship, which that didn't make sense. They survive Galactus and Silver Surfer at the same time on their little ship. What kind of ship did he have? Also, they run away from Silver Surfer. Silver Surfer spends his life flying through space. He would know, and I mean, not just like in our solar system, all over the damn universe. So he would kind of know about black holes and things, and they try to trip him up or her up to get her stuck in a black hole. And this isn't a bad thing, but I'm watching them like, well, she would kind of know I can't go too close to this. She's not a novice. She's spends her life is flying through this shit, looking for worlds for this guy. So she would kind of know, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go here, but whatever. So, little things that were just dumb. I think that was kind of it as far as the things I didn't like. I didn't like too much. But what I will say about the movie is towards the end, even though they had that stupid scene where Sue is manipulating Galactus's body for her powers, which again, maybe she can do that. I don't think so, but whatever. She's pushing Galactus and shit. Fucking guy's the size of a building. And it's not like she's just pushing something that is stationary. He would be fighting back. So it's like you're pushing a building, but the building is also fighting back against you, and you're still pushing it. Maybe she could do that. I don't think so, but even despite that stupid shit that I was watching, they did two things properly. So they didn't make Reed Richards into a comical joke, because Reed Richards always, it's like, how are you going to make this guy's powers useful? They didn't do as good as they could have, but it wasn't a comical joke. Let Reed Richards shine using what he should shine with, his brain. And then when the stretchy things needed to happen, it didn't look or feel stupid or comical like the first Fantastic Four movies. So that was a credit to them. Also, they got a genuine emotional smile out of me. Genuine smile. Maybe it's because I'm a husband and a father now, and I have my own little boy. But maybe that's it. But that scene at the end with Franklin and the Fantastic Four comes together and they get it done, and Franklin resurrects his mom. That whole sequence was kind of tied the movie together. And then again, now I know why they made her pregnant. They needed that in order to kind of give some heart to the movie, because they tried earlier in the movie. Reed Richards and Sue had an argument about nonsense. She was like, "Oh, you're thinking that maybe our son is," and he's like, "Well, I'm just, that's just one of the options available. That's what I do. I think about every option, not saying I'm going to use it." She's like enraged with him, and like they're trying to wedge into an argument in order to get emotion out of people, which is lazy. It's a sign of a bad writer. But at the end, I'm not going to lie, I was sitting there and I was like, all right, okay. I'm not going to force back and be like, no, I hate it. So I didn't like the movie. I didn't love the movie. I didn't really even like it. I don't have any real desire to watch it again. But it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And again, that's probably because I don't know much about these characters or care much about them. The effects the effects were hit or miss, because again, the sets, the shitty looking Silver Surfer, outside of those two things, though, I think everything kind of looked really good. I did like the way that they made Galactus. They kind of stuck to form. There wasn't enough action. I forgot about that. There wasn't nearly enough action in the movie. You didn't really get to see the Thing being the Thing. Again, there weren't that many stretchy scenes with Mr. Fantastic and Sue. She got to do her stuff, but there wasn't enough action. There weren't enough opportunities for them to give action. And again, it's a movie. We're going as an action movie, action comic book movie. We're coming here to see some action. You give us some action. That's why we're here. That's what we want to see. And it wasn't enough of it. It was in there, but it wasn't enough of it. There weren't enough opportunities written into the story. So all in all, I would obviously not recommend that you pay for it, because my whole Stop Shopping channel is, don't pay these companies, especially Disney now. Don't give them shit. But if you can catch it for free, I guess check it out. It's not great. I don't know. I don't even know what to say anymore. It's like movies are so bad that when a movie is at least partially decent, you're like, okay, well, we got something. So I guess I didn't like the movie, didn't love the movie, but I didn't hate it. And it wasn't a comical joke. The writing wasn't lazy, pathetic trash like normal. This was just, not a great story. It was a good story, but it wasn't a great story, and it wasn't a great movie or a good movie. It was just a passable movie. Again, these movies are starting to feel like episodes of a TV show. They don't feel like movies anymore. So if it was a TV show, I probably would give it even more credit, but it was a full-length feature film, and it was only passable. So if you want to see it, let me know what you think. That's my random rant. I don't know what to say at the end of this. Bye-bye. Fantastic.